Welcome back to Wellbeing Wednesdays, brought to you by the Tulane University Counseling Center. I am one of your co-hosts, Shawna Foose. I'm a staff therapist at the center, joined as always by my lovely co-host.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Jinaki Flint. I'm a staff psychologist here at the Counseling Center. And today we are joined by...
Hello everybody, I am Dr. Lilian Odera. I am a psychologist and I am the new director of the Counseling Center. And it's my pleasure to join you today.
Yes, welcome, or as we say here in New Orleans, bienvenue.
Merci beaucoup.
We're so delighted to have you on Wellbeing Wednesday. We're so delighted to have you at the Counseling Center. Why don't we start with just you telling us a little bit about where you've come from that brought you to Tulane?
Well, thank you for that very warm welcome. So I'm coming to Tulane from the Northeast. I am a Maryland girl. So I'm coming directly from Salisbury University, which is part of the University State System of Maryland Schools. And also prior to that, I was at Towson University, also closer to the Baltimore area. So that's where I'm coming from, closer to the shores, closer to the water. I love the water. And I am super excited to be at Tulane and just be a part of such an awesome group of people.
We're excited to have you, for sure.
So maybe you'd like to share with us and with our viewers some of your background as it relates specifically to university counseling centers.
Absolutely. So my entire career has been in counseling centers, which is pretty cool. That should tell you how much I love working with students and working in a campus health setting. Since my postdoc was in a counseling center in Miami at Florida International, and that's where I started my work several years ago. I'm not gonna age myself by saying how many years ago that was. And so I have had really the unique experience of being in 3 different counseling centers. And so that's really been great to work in a team approach. So I've really enjoyed being in a leadership team where we can kind of work through how to best serve students. What are some of the effective and practices to serve students and provide accessible service to students? So I want to believe that I'm bringing a lot of experience to Tulane in terms of how to work with students in different settings. I've been in a center as large as about 60,000 students in terms of the student population, but also I've been in a school that has just shy of 9,000 students. So I have been in different settings and the challenges and the barriers you face when you're trying to serve such a huge student body or a small student body. So I'm excited. I have tons of experience under my belt. I've had some amazing mentors in doing work in counseling centers that I'm hoping we can roll out here at Tulane.
Yes. That's pretty awesome. And we love career counseling center people around here. So yeah, I am very interested though in some of the, not just in the work that you've done that brought you here, but how do you see your being here? I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of see all of the campus yet, but what do you think that you might come through in here with? What is your kind of, I guess it would be more like a vision for where you would like to see this counseling center go? Or if you have just a brief vision, like nobody's asking for a long term, but what do you see so far as like how that's matching up with what you know you can bring to this?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. I'm still formulating my vision because I have all these ideas about what would make a great counseling center. But then I also value and respect the work that has already been done here at Tulane. And so I've really been spending the last couple of weeks meeting with campus partners, getting to know what they need in their partnership with the counseling center. And I haven't finished my rounds yet, but I'm getting an idea of what is it that other stakeholders in the university need from us. So my approach to running a counseling center or providing leadership is based on the need. I don't approach this work with saying I'm holding a hammer, everything is a nail, but figuring out what do we need. I've spent most of my career in state schools. So it's going to be a shift for me being at Tulane and learning what are some of the different needs that stakeholders have, not just the students, but faculty and staff that they need from the counseling center that would support the work they're doing. The bottom line is things like retention. That's really huge for me. Matriculation and retention so students can get what they need and get out of here. You know, I love students, but I tell them, I need you to leave. I need you to hold that diploma and get out of here.
Yeah.
When you're healthy and you're happy and you're satisfied. And so my vision is to support the mission of the university, support the mission of the division, and understand the little subvisions or whatever it is that different stakeholders have, like what does housing expect? You know, what does case management would they like from us? What does all the diversity programs and multicultural programs, what do they need from us? The academic deans, I met with some of those already to know what is it you're looking for that would help your students do well. So I believe the counseling center cannot be a bubble and say this is what we do. I know there's a lot of conversation about are we a counseling center within a university, or is this a university that has a counseling center? And those are thoughts for another day, but I want to make sure we're meeting the needs of stakeholders, but I'm also very committed to self-care. So I am a huge advocate of making sure you have something in your cup so you have something to pour out. So I am also very attentive to the needs of my staff and the awareness in terms of their needs, professional development, their self-care, their boundary setting, their development as professionals so that they're getting what they need to do the work that I expect them to do. So I'm also very attentive to that and making sure they're taking care of themselves so that when they show up here, I always tell staff, if you show up at work, you're here 100%. If you can't give 100%, you need to go and refill the cup, because when students are seeking our services, and being in this field, you know that when a student is sitting in front of you, they really are not concerned whether you're sick today. They're not concerned about what's going on in your personal life today. So I'm committed to staff showing up, being attentive to what their needs are and meeting those needs so that when they show up, they can meet the expectation of the job. So I love self-care. My vision is also to make this a fun place to work. Really a fun place to work. The reason why I've been in counseling center work all these years is because you don't have this monotonous work environment. You just don't know how the day is gonna go. The unpredictability of this work really, it makes you think on your feet. You grow because one moment you're dealing with a crisis and you're doing an intake, you're doing a workshop, you're talking to a parent, you're doing a video like this. And I think the diversity of the things we do within a counseling center is what makes this a really fun place to work. And I want staff to be able to have that perspective that this work is not linear, that this work is a place where you can get your hands in group, you can get your hands in, doing some media work. We're licensed mental health professionals, but we're here doing workshops. We're motivating students. We are out there doing jumping jacks with the students. We're doing Zumba, whatever it is that we do, because I believe mental health is holistic. It's not a bubble. So my vision is a little bit of that. It may not sound so organized right now. I'm gonna get it together eventually, but I think you get a bit of what I
hear it. Right? Yes, I hear it. I hear it. I like.
And the other piece I didn't say about, this may be answering a question you're gonna ask later, is I'm very committed to social justice. And advocacy.
That is on my question list.
So yes, you were gonna ask that question?
Yes.
That is really the core of this work. I love working in a counseling center within a university or a college, because you have these young people who are really just developmentally primed for just building where they want to go, finding themselves, finding their identities, finding their voice, finding their place in society, individuating, all those autonomous things they're learning. So I really like the intersection of social justice with the work we do. And so teaching, empowering these young people, college students, how to effectively use their voice in a healthy way while they're also taking care of their mental health. So I will advocate for them, but I think it's much more powerful to empower them to effectively advocate for themselves. As well as, the staff as well. Part of the work I've done over the years is around multicultural work and social justice. So I want to be in a place where I can, everybody, staff included, can have a voice. And they can have a sense of belonging, that their uniqueness is welcome, but they can also be part of a system with their full selves being present. So I love social justice work. So you probably have more questions on that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of outreach in your voice. And, outreach is really critical for counseling centers. And so I did want to hear, you gave me a lot of feedback. So I did want to hear more about how you see outreach really impacting the campus in creating this community of care. I mean, some of the research that is out right now shows that, at least from two different sources that I've read, talks about how counseling centers and mental health issues are important to catch early, and how that's tied to retention. Like, usually administrators will capture about 11% of students if they go by GPA alone, those students that are at risk for dropping out or early withdrawal. But if they also add the students with mental health issues to that, they tend to be able to reach about 30% of students. And so I wanted to know what your thoughts were about outreaching in counseling center, within the counseling center work, and how that is linked to and important to retention, student retention.
That's a really good question. I'll preempt this by saying I spent quite a number of years of my career as a director of outreach, as a counseling center. So, wow, that was an awesome time because I learned and grew so much, and I learned a lot of preventive work. I'm persuaded that we have to shift away from a model where we're waiting for students to come to us for traditional treatment. And also, if you're familiar with the step care model, not every student that comes to the counseling center needs therapy. And so having outreach work coming directly out of the counseling center, or in our case, coming out of campus health, whether it's from health promotion with the peer educators or from our clinicians here, it's really necessary to step outside of our comfort zone and our comfort spaces, so to speak, and get out there and do some psychoeducational work, do some community building work, and empowering stakeholders about how to deal with mental health. A lot of that has to do with also destigmatizing mental health and help-seeking behavior. Because a lot of students, by the time they come through the door, they've really done everything in their power to avoid coming to us, or even acknowledging that there's a mental health component to their functioning. Yeah, so I am a huge advocate of, okay, let's go to them. Let's go to housing and do some workshops. Let's go out there and give them the tools they need, because we as trained professionals, we are aware of the developmental challenges that the students are dealing with already. And so how about we get ahead of that? We know they're going to be exploring maybe romantic relationships for the first time. They're going to be learning conflict resolution with a roommate for the first time. So we can get ahead of that by saying, hey, can we build a system where we can tool them before those issues come up? And in some conversations I've had this week about even training them and equipping them with leadership skills. Exploring how to be leaders in student organizations, in clubs and all that. Can we get ahead of that and find a healthy way of being, of handling things that they may not necessarily like or enjoy? how to self-soothe, how to build coping skills. So outreach really kind of falls into that. And I'm a firm believer of everybody needs to do outreach. And all my staff who are listening to me right now, I want everybody out there doing outreach. There's no
spread the love.
specific people that do outreach. We share the love. And regardless of the years I've spent in leadership, I have no hesitation about tabling and sitting at LBC and handing out flyers and stress balls to students, because outreach is about putting a face to the people you see. And especially students with marginalized identities or who are less likely to seek help, if they see us out there, then they will get the impression that we're approachable, we're accessible, we're real people, they can talk to us. And so I've had students come to the center because I went to their student org meeting and we just talked, or we ran into each other at LBC, if I was like here, Tulane, and we had a conversation. So when we get on the phone, when they call for an appointment, they're like, oh, I remember Dr. Odera. They are more likely to seek services if we can get out of the building and go out there where they are. So I could say a whole lot about outreach, but I'm a firm believer in preventive work because it reduces the bottleneck of the demand when people are trying to come to us, because we tool them to pull something out of the bag instead of waiting until everything is on fire to come to us. So that's my abbreviated response.
And we know that 40% of students may be struggling and will never come to the counseling center. So if we're out there, they will see us, right?
Oh, they will.
And those marginalized students also don't have very low mental health service utilization. So it's important for them to see us out in these two-lane streets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's kind of all full circle, the way that you were previously talking about our self-care as clinicians, that's important to you as well, right? And a mentor of mine always said, we must be well to help others be well. You know, in our profession, it's really essential that we take good care of ourselves, or we really can't do the work as well as we should. And our wellness and our visibility out in the community, those tie together for the effective work we can do behind closed doors in our offices. So I feel like it all just kind of circles back on itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and so we're outreaching, we're in-reaching and outreaching, right? Reaching in to reach out, per the famous article. Reaching in to reach out. Speaking of that, let's go, taking it a little broader. How have you seen, Dr. Odera, the kind of mental health trends shift in your career, across your career and at different counseling centers? How have you seen those trends shifting, if at all, or how do they look now versus how they did then?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Things have really shifted. There's been a continued increase in students coming to college who have already accessed mental health in one setting, in one way or another. So that means a lot more freshmen are coming in, having been in therapy or having had some sort of psychiatric treatment prior. So that number has gone up. It used to be really rare that a lot of them had never had any contact. So a lot more students are coming, they've already been on medication, on psychotropics, and they just need to continue those services. But there's also, how do I say it? There's a lot more severity of mental health issues with students who are actually seeking help at the counseling center, regardless of whether, especially first-time seekers of services. The severity of the presenting issues has gone up. The presenting issues remain the same. Pretty much if you look at some of the research from CCMH, it's still depression, anxiety, relationship issues. Those are still way up there in one variation or another. but the severity of it has gone up in terms of students who or clients who have had some sort of suicidal ideation. That number has consistently been going up, which behooves us to put a lot more resources towards suicide prevention work, which is, you asked about my vision. I want to put a lot more weight on suicide prevention work so that we can educate students about what that looks like, how to notice signs, and how to help students who are dealing with ideation, a roommate, a classmate, a friend, just because that has gone up. So those are some trends. So demand has gone up in terms of, because we're doing a lot of outreach now. There was not a lot of outreach happening 20 years ago out of college counseling centers, but think about the work we've been building on all these years. And now with organizations like AUCCCO, there's a lot more resources. So, you know, I like those who are going into outreach right now, like newly minted outreach coordinators and directors. They have a slew of resources for them, people to draw from to know how to do the work, which means there's a lot more work being done to create awareness of mental health. We're just walking into is it Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Yeah.
Right.
So 20 years ago, there was not a lot of conversation about programming around work and awareness around that. But now, because there is, it seems like demand has gone up because people know. So they're seeking help, and demand has not necessarily, how do I say this, has not grown at the same rate as enrollment. So it's very easy sometimes for administrators to kind of think those two go hand in hand because we're enrolling more students, the demand has gone up. Enrollment has not increased at the same pace as demand. So demand is kind of ahead. So they're like, okay, so why do we have more people seeking help and our enrollment is not going up? Because we're doing outreach, because students are more aware. And you know, this generation right now, they are more likely, I'm sure it's happened to the both of you, you're walking around campus and somebody says, oh, see my therapist. Hey, everybody come and meet my therapist. Because therapist is the in thing for them, because it's been destigmatized for their generation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are some trends that they are more likely to seek help. And minoritized students are becoming more aware about it. They're just dealing with the barrier of, does my support system support my help seeking? Like, I know I can go to therapy, I'd like to go, but my family still doesn't support therapy. So that's another barrier that we have to deal with, because the students on this campus may say, sure, I'll go to therapy. You're less likely to find a 20-year-old student of color saying, I'm just gonna pray about it, I'm not gonna go to therapy. They are more aware about, I can go and talk to Shawna, I can talk to Dr. Flint about it, but can I tell my grandma that I'm going to therapy? That's the part that's still not, that may be a barrier for them seeking help. So those are some of the trends. There's a lot that has changed, but those are some few things that have really changed the trend. Another major one that's really changed is, which I want to kind of see where we are as a university and as a division, is how much work we're doing in equipping stakeholders, staff and faculty to be fast responders. So that the burden of intervening in mental health situations does not rest squarely on the shoulders of the counseling center staff. So a trend that is much more popular is more training in QPR, more training in mental health first aid, more training in just making sure, especially people who interface with students more, faculty, staff, know what to do. How do I help a student in distress in front of me? That's a trend that now is, and I'm hoping we're really doing it here.
Excellent. And you've already answered the next question. So, wait, well, she took care of that. The mark of a career counseling center director.
Oh my goodness. So now I'm curious what the question was.
It was how do we utilize our stakeholders to help us on campus and creating I'm big on saying creating a community of care, right?
Yes.
So that
Yes.
campus wide, we're all pointed in that same direction.
Exactly.
And I think you spoke beautifully to that, and that as a trend as well. Because when we talk about trends, most people stop at the mental health symptomatic trends, right? But there are all these other social trends and cultural trends that are happening that are impacting how students are moving on campus, how we're thinking about outreaching to them, how we're thinking about even treating them individually and in groups as well. So excellent points made. Thank you for those responses.
Dr. Odera, you've mentioned some barriers that you recognize and acknowledge that might, prevent a student from finding us or finding our support. Are there other barriers that you can see or think about that are on the radar for you?
Barriers to help seeking. The big one is usually the stigma associated with help seeking behavior. That's a big one. Some students may have, and kind of that one has all these veins that come out of it. One of those is because we use a short-term model of therapy. That can be a barrier because like I said, demand goes up, and demand has gone up, and sometimes that does not match the staffing. So that, students, nobody wants a wait list. Nobody wants to wait. Everybody wants the immediacy of care. And that can be a barrier, especially if we have not socialized the community to wait for appointments, to be able to, and so a barrier may be, what do we do in the interim before people have appointments? And I really want to put a lot of energy into making sure that we have all these subclinical resources in place consistently when people are waiting for appointments, so that it doesn't seem like I'm really waiting for my appointment, but I have all this homework that I need to get to. One of the things we will be rolling out is TAO, which is therapy assisted online. And TAO has it has a whole library of 150 modules of, mindfulness meditation, psychoed on sleep hygiene, anxiety, dealing with anxiety. It's just so many resources in there. And if we can socialize, and the beauty of TAO is that at least the suite that I signed us on to it's available. We can do this in another meeting. It has the capacity of all stakeholders with a Tulane login can get in there. So it's a three-pronged suite in the sense that clinicians have access to to the modules that you can actually tailor and create modules specific to your client. And I'm hoping we can, when we roll it out, I'd love us to do another segment like this just to talk about what TAO is. But just briefly to tell you what that would look like, it would really augment therapy in the sense that you as clinicians, you can be able to tailor some modules for your clients based on the presenting issues and the things you're working on, and say, hey, before we meet next time, I need you to go to this module and do this module, and some are 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I need you to take care of these ones before we meet. So as a clinician, other stakeholders, other campus partners, say athletics, housing, case management, campus activities, they can also have access and create modules for those populations, subpopulations to work with, whether it's tutoring, there are all these modules in there. Then the last one, remember I talked about self-care? Yes. Anybody with an EDU login, a Tulane EDU login, can go in there and access resources for themselves. So you at home, you can go and say, I need like a 15-minute meditation. And I've worked with TAO for my entire career. When they created TAO, and Sherry Benton, the creator of TAO, rolled it out, I remember, just watching that process going on. She was a counseling center director. And they've evolved over the last 15 years to make it user-friendly. So you have the magnifying glass where you can say, I want something on sleep hygiene. And it dumps out all these things you can use. So having modules like that and the recent app that we rolled out for TU as well, those ones can help us to reduce barriers to help seeking. So that people who are like, I don't want to go to see Shawna, and or I don't have time, or my schedule is not conducive to when you have appointments. I would just create all these modules and some of the work, Shawna, you're doing, put them on social media and say, here are little groups of, this is for anxiety, this is for social anxiety, this is for conflict resolution. People can go and do that, whether they're faculty or staff. So things like those tools we already have can address some of those barriers. And I'm a huge problem solver. So I'm always like, a barrier comes up, it's an opportunity for us to get creative and say, so what do we have in our hands that we can help to address this issue?
Barriers are to be removed.
Well, and I love the way this approach is so innovative too, and taking technology, right, and creating this process so that the waiting for an appointment period is now has other components in a person's, worldview, right? That meets them where they are. It's available on demand. Just so much innovation around that. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, and you already have groups in there. I mean, one of the things I like about our counseling center is you have all the skill building groups, you have support groups, you have interpersonal process groups. All those can argument therapy because you tell them, so we're not going to meet for individual next week, but you're going to go to group, right? And you're going to do this and the other, right? So they're not going to miss a beat. If people are compliant, there's so much in between, like you said, Shawna, that they can engage in, and we can still have eyes on them if they show up for group on the week they don't have individual therapy scheduled.
That takes so much out of like the things that we do, those rip and run seminars that, we'd like to have, if that can show up on, something, they can just click a button and get that information. That's actually just, for our campus, that is out of this world innovative. Being able to bring that in. And I'm so grateful to you for bringing this fresh new energy around technology, around efficiency, more efficient ways to do this work of counseling center advocacy and treatment and outreach. I'm so looking forward to our future with you. And thank you for showing up here today and agreeing to do our Wellbeing Wednesday so we can show you off to our campus community. And we will definitely come back and talk about that innovative project, because I'm sure we're all going to have a hand in it. And so thank you, Dr. Odera, for all that you're bringing to us. I know you're kind of inundated now with she's here, let's all grab her. But you are handling it with class and style and grace. And we are very, very lucky to have you. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I would like to just really quickly share my screen to remind our viewers about the services at the Counseling Center so that they know how to access us. Let me get this right. All right. So just a reminder that the Uptown Counseling Clinic is in the Diebold Complex on the first floor, and the main entrance is right across the street from the Riley Center. And our Uptown Clinic hours, we're available till 7 Monday through Thursday and until 5 on Fridays. We offer same-day consultation appointments. That's the way to start the process with the Counseling Center. So you make one phone call, 504-314-2277. You'll get to speak to one of our patient representatives, and they will set you up to meet with a clinician on that same day. It's just an opportunity for you to talk about what's going on, what your concerns might be. The clinician can offer some support and make some recommendations. And then by the time you wrap that up, you will have a plan and know kind of how your support is going to look moving forward. We are still offering some groups. I think our Mindfulness for Wellness has a new section starting in April. So if you're interested in group, that same day consultation appointment is a place to talk about that. And the person you meet with might make a recommendation around groups as well. And that is all I have in those slides. So again, I have to echo everything Jinaki said. Dr. Odera, this is so exciting. It's so wonderful to have your energy and your grace here with us. I mean, I think we're all really excited to see what direction the Counseling Center takes from here. So many thanks.
Thank you so much.
And with all that, we will say goodbye. Don't forget to follow Tulane Campus Health on social media and watch for the next episode of Wellbeing Wednesday next Wednesday. Take care, everybody. Be well.
Bye, everyone.